Across Europe, bells began to toll. After 4 years of turmoil and bloodshed, the war effort in Europe was finally over. On the 12th of January 1919, the Hall of Mirrors opened its doors to the leaders and dignitaries of the world. The Versailles discussions, also known as the Paris Peace Conferences, had begun. Over the next year, the victor nations of the Great War would convene to determine the fate of Germany. The future conservation of peace now lay on their shoulders. Today, we flash back to the most important conference in the aftermath of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles. On the 11th of November 1918, the German Provisional Government finally succumbed to the Allied forces' crippling warfare agenda, both on the field and domestically. The Daily Chronicle noted the next day, "Our men marched singing, with a smiling light in their eyes. They had done their job, and it was finished with the greatest victory in the world." But many, particularly in Germany, were already looking towards the future, in the knowledge the aftermath of the war would bring dark years of economic instability and political extremism. The extent of these troubles, the fabric of society's functioning, lay in the treaties dealing with the defeated. The most important would address Germany, and would demand the full attention of the major players in the war: France, Britain and America, who would compose the famed Big Three. America and France were positioned on the polar extremities of the decision-making spectrum. France wanted to see Germany obliterated, whereas America would rather see Germany let off lightly to ensure peace. Britain fell between the two. British interests were represented by Lloyd George, the pragmatic Brit who had been Chancellor, Munitions Minister and by 1919 Prime Minister. He was interested in maintaining trading links between Germany, appreciating that imposing extortionate reparations upon Germany would have repercussions for Britain and indeed Europe. He wanted to ensure that the peace was met, but the naval presence of Germany was to be stripped back, especially considering the naval arms race was a contributing factor towards the First World War. France was physically devastated and nationally demoralised by the war. As for most of the war, it became a battlefield. Georges Clemenceau wanted revenge for the war, and retribution for the Franco-Prussian War. Justice is what the German delegation asks for, and says Germany has been promised. Justice is what Germany shall have, claimed Clemenceau, who would go on to demand £30 billion in reparations. His fierce and domineering attitude in the discussions soon warranted his old nickname, the Tiger. Alongside compensation, he wanted the military to be wiped out, the country to be split into several small states, and the industrial heartlands to be taken from Germany. Wilson went into Versailles seeking peace, embodied by a series of aims known as the 14 Points, including self-determination, disarmament, and the establishment of a League of Nations. Although the loss of American men was minor in comparison to the death toll of the European countries, Congress still thought the war was unnecessary, and supported further the isolationism ideal. The outcome of Versailles satisfied none of the leaders, making it a compromised peace, which was part of its downfall, but majorly the condemnation of the treaty was actually in its content. For Germany, its military was to be cut to 100,000 men. It was to have no tanks, submarines or air force, and was forbidden Anschluss with Austria. The country sustained a loss of 48% of iron, 10% of coal, 12% of people and 13% of land, a major blow to its industries and overall economic status. Finally, the reparation bill was pinned at £6,600 million, a fraction of what the French had demanded, but still enough to gain criticism from historians, both past and present, that the demand would severely strain the nation. Germany was faced with two options: sign the treaty or face invasion by the Allied forces. The provisional governing system left behind in Germany agreed to sign the treaty on the 28th of June 1919, exactly 5 years after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The Germans believed they were signing on to Wilson's 14 points, but after the harsh reality of the ruling was made public, Germans began to cultivate the popular stab-in-the-back myth, which branded the men who signed the armistice in 1918 November criminals. These men would go on to build the Weimar Constitution, which would become Germany's first democracy. Overseas, in one last gesture of defiance, the captured German naval force held at Scapa Flow in the north of Scotland scuttled itself. Many in the military who disagreed with the ceasefire went on to become the Freikorps, active paramilitary units which went across Germany attempting revolutions. Although ordinary people could not bear to comprehend the future for Germany, their leaders were forced to sign. The repercussions of the treaty would send shockwaves which would alter Germany's future forever.